Let's see. Well, again, welcome everyone. And the group agreements already, Sandy talked about it, and you know this well from our ACEs training. So hopefully we behave ourselves. Sorry, just forgive me. I'm not dysregulated, but I don't know, kind of funky too here today. So what is a mindfulness? I already told you that I might be a mindful instead of being mindful. Simple definition is the practice of being in the present moment, paying attention and without judgment, a way of living life. I don't know if you are in my session in the training, I always say connection before correction, but also connection before content. So that's why I don't want to really focus on the slide itself, but how we're going to connect to each other safely, non-judgmentally is more important than just trying to spread out the skill set. And there are many examples of mindfulness, as you know well, body scan, yoga, meditation, centering prayer, deep breathing, mindful eating, walking, coloring, any activity which helps to focus on the present moment. John Kabat-Zinn, I think he is one of the classic textbook guy about the mindfulness. He talked about the 9 attitude. So non-judging, patience, beginner's mind, trust, non-striving, acceptance, letting go, generosity, and gratitude. Well, and also if you have any questions, just let me know anytime. And his book is pretty much classic textbook. You can get delve into it. But the important thing is that why mindfulness is important. This is not just a kind of practice, right? Our assertion is actually the scientific research provides the evidence that when our automatic response happen, fight, flight, freeze, and flock, actually, before we go to the reaction, right? And if we have a introspection that there's a moment, there's a stimulus is having triggers activating. So if I become mindful choice, then I can respond properly to my body and to my system rather than just to react. So out of all this, I'm going to ask that what kind of a mindfulness we do. So one of the topic is that practicing mindfulness and then doing it the training. I just want to tell you this. To me, that ACEs and then trauma-informed care movement, and many people talk about it. It's just a lifestyle because a lot of people still talk about the toolkits. And so if you want to really do this training and you need to live the trauma-informed way of life, and likewise, hopefully we try to practice the mindfulness. And I don't think a mindfulness is really special things. It just need to be intentional with our mind. I think you learn that the bottom-up approach in the traumatology because we emphasize the body is important, how the body manifests our trauma. Typical mindfulness is a more top-down approach. So regarding is whether trauma survivors are or not, but it's really like John's book is more gratitude, to let go, all these things could be more top-down approach. But having said that, yeah, can you share that what kind of a practice you can say you do usually for your own mindfulness? Anybody?
Sang-Hoon, can you put the list back of the 10 things?
Okay, sure.
Because I think that'll help.
That will help you?
It'll help me identify that hopefully I do at least one. I'm not sure if I do any.
Mindful attitude, you mean this one? Oh, I didn't share it. So
No. Yeah, I can't see it. There it is. Yeah.
okay, that's
Thanks.
um
So are we responding for what we personally do for our own mindfulness or what we do maybe in communication with others?
it can be both ways, but maybe what I want to ask more personally. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I think for myself and my own mindfulness, it's kind of number two, but allowing patience for yourself, allowing that grace for yourself to work through problems and to not always have a solution or the answer, and that's okay. And also to not get it right, I think is also something that we struggle with, especially if you're thinking in the professional world of things where you always want to do well and you want to get it right and you don't want to, potentially be reprimanded later on by somebody else, or get corrected by somebody else, do it right the first time. So allowing yourself that space to work through that and know that mistakes are going to happen. And then I think not on a personal level, but even with others, extending that to them, and that they aren't always going to have the right answers and that you might have to walk alongside them differently, and that people's responses to conversations are going to be different, even if they come from the same background. And so allowing for that opportunity where one person you might be jumping forward and working through problems together or working through a topic together, where somebody else who even from that same organization background might take a little bit more time to process through some of that.
Thank you for sharing that, Marshall. That it's basically that it might be related to more the self-care and then resilience, but yes, mindfulness is a huge tool for that, right? So the bringing especially self-compassion is a huge challenge, but that bring them more space, that's how we started being mindful, space for self-compassion, allowing others voice, but also protecting myself and being patient, and then be generous to myself is very important. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I did it a lot too. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
So what's the beginner's mind? Is that teachableness?
What do you mean the beginner's mind? Oh, the beginner's mind here.
Yeah.
So beginner's mind is attitude that yeah, so it's like try to look at this as kind of you look at things that as for the first time, right? Which means that whenever we come in here on a certain situation, actually trauma is kind of we got stuck with past memory, so all our past experiences come up together. So it's just how we're gonna, it's kind of similar to the number 7, let go. How I'm gonna let go everything and then just come in the beginner's mind. And like you remember that Sandy said before we start the session, right? That's like oh yeah, we are all kind of beginner here, So it's just we all through that ACES consortium trainings. We are the community here, but also yeah, we are just kind of a beginner here to the startup. Yeah, so you just kind of a beginner at the students in the first class. Maybe there's some scare, but also there's a lot of excitement, and then there's kind of an empty space in my mind, instead of all types of the kind of stimulus or activating or triggers coming up, or certain fear. I mean, all the things that we can think about, as well as expectation.
Okay. Frankly, I'm struggling. I don't even know if I'm any of these right now. This is just this is a multiple choice question, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything right now. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. Okay. You guys anytime jump in, okay? For example, let's see. I always use the mood meter when I do the training. So it's pretty much a simple social emotional learning, that emotion check-in, right? So that's why, I mean, John's book is pretty much kind of a classic, but also very rigorous, very really cognitive process oriented. But nowadays we do a lot of social emotional or somatic approach that for the trauma informed care. So I do use the mood meters for the kids. There are a lot of kind of chart you can use actually, that the things that you can use typically just where you are. So mindfulness is not just about using my mind, actually checking on being mindful where I am with my emotions, with my spirit, with my body, and with my psyche and with my thought, and to be at the present moment, right? We just ask how many colors you can recognize surrounding yourself, around you, and can you smell something? And so to try to pay attention in my body and also into my body and also what's going around, so I can kind of ground myself, anchor myself to where I am at the present. So there are a lot of tools actually. So that was a mindful attitude we saw, but here they're feeling chart during the pandemic. Did a lot about what you can control, what you cannot control. So it's pretty much you can do anytime. You don't need a fancy slides. You just have one paper, boom, split it in the two columns and say what you can control, what you cannot control, just to jot down. It really, really helps. So I can really focus on what I can control now, because a lot of times what I cannot control makes me anxious and kind of being more mindful, right? And here is more about so there's other things that we can think about. So it's the same thing that maybe here is the attunement and empathy, self-awareness, critical thinking, attentive observation. It's a more relational mindfulness, and posture, focus, formal duration, consistency, and all these things. We can really go into more. So you can email me or email Jeremiah if you need more of the things. I love these informal things because this is our life. Every day we do showering, dishwashing, brushing teeth, and drinking coffee or tea, and walks in the nature and gardening, right? A sip of a beverage. So it's really about more kind of intentional. So in that sense, here maybe dishwashing or kind of a showering might be more, rather than mindful, maybe kind of emptying our mind, kind of a distraction, putting the distraction, right? Just so I can empty that's my brain space. But if you do this kind of intentionally, that's the being mindful. I'm not saying that you come back home, you take a shower as a regular kind of things, but actually I know that a lot of times people start doing because when it's too much end of the day, and then just doing something that like a simple kind of a daily things or a chore, but by intentional choice. So this is kind of, when I say lifestyle, not just talking about the regular hour, regular time, but whenever just I see that there is a certain kind of a dysregulation, and I intentionally choose to take a time off and then try to do certain things, right? So single tasking and sensory awareness, anchoring, creating space for breathing, mindful listening, emotional awareness, pause before reacting. This all is really good a practice we can bring in. Yeah, I always bring my breathing ball in L training, and I learned this that from Dr. Terry Pipe in ASU when she started the Mindfulness Center. I knew her before that, but you know, she always practiced the mindfulness wherever she stand in any type of training and wherever stage and speech. And I learned that from her as a life model that we really do it. Although we may think, oh, people are not gonna like it, or they're gonna be reactions, you know, all these things. So one thing I wanna emphasize here is that the more you do it intentionally, regularly as your lifestyle, actually you have a power to share, and then you can just go up and then do it. Honestly, when I saw somebody did this about 10 years ago in certain place, I thought, what is that? I thought it's ridiculous. And now I'm finding, years later, I'm doing this wherever I go because I saw the model and then I just try to practice. And you need some courage on that. Don't just do so many assumption that, oh man, people are not gonna like it, right? Honestly, when we try to do mindfulness, most of people think it's so weird, and that's pretty much normal response, and they feel like, So in that sense, if you really believe in mindfulness as a wonderful toolkit of trauma recovery from science and clinical practice, and we need to kind of do it when we do training, and don't be shy, or don't feel too much anxious, or don't be afraid. Make sense? Okay. With that, I want to emphasize this though, that as you know well, trauma is not just a danger, that's a perceived threat. So anything can trigger or activate us. So we cannot prevent everything, but we do our best. So trauma-informed mindfulness practice is a little bit different, because if you go to typical mindfulness sessions, people always say, close your eyes. But honestly, there are people, when they close their eyes, they actually highly activated or triggered. So we always give them option. Okay, so when we bring this mindfulness in the training, that hey, I want to close my eyes, but it's up to you. You're gonna close your eyes or not. Okay, so like that, and so any kind of closing eyes, some pose, and then sometimes a noisy mind is a way of avoiding thoughts or feelings. So also people think, whenever we do breathing, right, a lot of people think about, am I doing right? There's no right and wrong way, or oh my gosh, I'm still mindful. That's all okay. So it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be weird, and it's okay not to be okay. Practice, apply it to yourself, and in the training you share that, and so people can be more relieved from any anxiety or anxious if they just participate in this kind of a practice. Because again, if it's not familiar, it can bring some kind of dysregulation actually to people. So when we do the mindfulness in the training, we always try to give options, right? And then I always say this: if you don't want to follow this, it just takes 3-4 minutes, but don't do it. Just be yourself and do something else if you want to do something else. So give the options, and also again the grace. So yeah, I hear that a lot from people that oh, that was too tough, or oh, I cannot do deep breathing. You know that even in our ACEs consortium training, they are kind of a future trainers, right? So they are pretty ready to do training, but still a lot of things happen in life, and in particular morning, particular afternoon, they are not ready for it. And when we try to deep breathing, guess what? When we are dysregulated, we are more kind of a short breathing. So we are in the short breath, so which means that we cannot breathe long. And so some people do the breathing, and kind of very authentic or rigorous way. Actually, they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm choking. So it's kind of important that always being non-judgmental and give a lot of room and flexibility while we're doing it. The window of tolerance or resilience, right? And this is ACEs consortium slides. So there's a hyperarousal or hyperarousal. So you are kind of in the middle. That's kind of your window of resilience. So I just make a kind of my own thing that, hey, that's just kind of assume that this is the limit of a hyperarousal, or this is a limit of hyperarousal, and you are in the middle. And let's just try to the mindfulness. So you don't need a toolkit here. You don't need a ball or something, sounding ball. There are so many mindfulness, the gadget, but you can just say that's the breathe in, breathe out, imagining my resilience window. It can be shrunk, but it can be expanded. So breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. So my point is that, based on the whatever material we can teach, we can do the mindfulness with the breathe in, breathe out, or kind of just think about it for a moment. You know what I mean? So it's not like you need a lot of resources for this. Just to try to be creative. And sometimes I always say that also, trauma training cannot end with a very heavy feeling. That's why I left trauma field 30 years ago and I came back. But anyway, so try to be creative. I always use this, like happy hour is waiting after this. So, just people come, humor is very important, and to kind of be empty ourselves and come back. So, yeah, just try to think about what kind of refreshing ideas that the people can just let go and then be mindful for the next kind of a session or next kind of teaching.